Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach. You know, as Rabbi Tzadok and Rabbi Labelle have said earlier, we're marking this moment that's supposed to be a moment of double joy. And the words that we use to describe Yom Tov and Shabbat are Shalom, peace, and Chag Sameach, days of celebration and happiness. And I'm feeling it right now as we say Hallel together, and shortly after I speak, we'll enter Yizkor, which is a time of memory and memorializing. And we've many times pointed out before how we're supposed to be in this space in a kind of split consciousness, both holding the joy and the peacefulness of Shabbat and of Yom Tov, and also holding the grief and sadness that we mark when we come to Yizkor. And I feel it in my body right now as we, during these days of celebration, are also witnessing so much pain and so much trauma to the nation right now, and really to the world. And so I just want to take a moment to hold how hard it is to live in this way, in which we're called to hold joy and sorrow all at once, to be present to what we all must be so grateful for every single day, and also to be aware of where the deficits and where the pain points are as well. And I want to invite us to reflect on it a little bit this morning together. In Exodus chapter 19, as we read about the revelation at Sinai, the text says the following: on the third day, as the morning dawned, there was thunder and lightning and a dense cloud upon the mountain, and a very loud blast of the shofar, so loud that all the people who were in the camp started to tremble. The blast of the shofar grew louder and louder, and God answered in thunder, and there was lightning, and there was fire. We're supposed to imagine and to understand that the divine revelation that came at Sinai, which this holiday of Shavuot comes to mark, was one that came in the midst of great noise and great turmoil and overwhelming of the senses. But the rabbis in Shemot Rabbah, they can't wrap their head around the revelation of anything really important coming amidst that much noise and confusion. And so instead, they offer the following. They teach in the name of Rabbi Abahu, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that when God actually gave the Torah, the moment that the divine revelation began, no bird chirped in all the world. No fowl fluttered, no ox lowed, the angels didn't fly, the seraphim did not utter the kedusha, the sea did not roar, the creatures didn't speak. For a moment, the entire universe was silent and mute. And in that moment, the divine voice came forward and said, Anochi Adonai Elohecha. I am the infinite. I am the Lord your God. This is a profoundly different image from the image of thunder and shofarot and crowds. This is more the image of Elijah and hearing kol dmama daka, the still small voice, the deep stillness up in the mountain, a silence across the world unlike anyone had ever experienced, as if to say that in the eyes of the rabbis, we can only really hear the deepest truths when there's quiet. It's been really hard to find quiet these days. This week, we passed that horrible threshold of 100,000 deaths in the United States from this virus. And that fact itself was really quickly overwhelmed as the video made its way around of a white woman in Central Park who was trembling, screaming to 911 that an African-American man was threatening her life. And then the very next day, just as we all grappled with the mundane nature of racism in America today, the video of the murder of George Floyd emerged. Nearly 10 minutes of a white officer with his knee on the neck of a Black man, face to the ground, whose life is snuffed out of him before the cameras, while the crowd is begging the officer to please get off of him. And he says, I can't breathe, and mama, please. And then for days, rage and grief and trauma pouring into the streets of the cities around this country, including our own. Protests against a system not that's broken, but that is working exactly as it was designed to. It's been hard to find a moment of quiet and stillness in these days because so much is happening so quickly. We are witnessing the eruption of pain in the public square. But Yom Tov came on Thursday night. Many of us turned off the constant flow of news and tried to enter into some place of quiet to see what we might be able to hear. Our rabbis say that right before the divine revelation occurred, in that moment of silence that happened so long ago, the people became aware for just a moment of the profound interconnectedness of all beings. And only once they held that awareness could God begin to utter Anochi Adonai Elohecha, could God offer the first sound of the revelation, all of it dependent on the insight, on the truth, on the reality of how profoundly tied up in each other we really are and we always have been. I wonder what we will hear in the silence. For me, in the relative silence of the last 36 hours, because of my distance from the daily flow, as we've been in the space of Yom Tov and Shabbat, for me, I have been focusing on 3 minutes, on 2 minutes and 53 seconds to be exact. I watched the video. I know it's controversial whether or not we should watch these things because many people say that it's watching the murder of Black people as entertainment, but I think it's essential that we all see and understand exactly what we're talking about here. Because after nearly 8 minutes, George Floyd's body stops moving. And it seems really clear that the breath of life is out of him, but then for 2 minutes and 53 seconds, his body is still. He's not even talking, and yet the knee is not lifted off of his neck. And I've been thinking in the relative silence of the last day and a half about what those 2 minutes and 53 seconds say about us as Americans, what it says about me as a person who walks through the world in white skin, what it says about all of us and the kind of collective that we have been a part of building and have allowed to persist and persevere over these times. I think it says to us the banality of evil is not only then, but is also now and is also here. The total dehumanization, the willingness to stomp out the life of a human being the way we would swat away a fruit fly in our kitchen. I think it points to the depth and the pervasiveness of hatred in our culture and the ubiquitousness of fear of Black men in particular and Black bodies. That officer saw a dead Black man as a consistent and ongoing threat to his life more than the officers at the Michigan State House saw white men who were armed with assault rifles as threats to their safety and their bodies. That's what I recall in this moment of silence. That's the truth that's keeping me up at night right now. And it's really important that we hold that truth because that is being revealed to us now for a reason. There's a playbook that is unfolding right now. In the aftermath of great revelations like this, which we periodically have in our culture, we immediately get distracted. We get distracted by reports of looting, of broken glass, of burning buildings. And it is scary and it is dangerous and I don't condone it, but we get distracted. And in that playbook, if we choose to follow along, we all become very, very concerned about the televisions that are being stolen from Target and not very concerned about the generations or centuries of racist policies, of aggressive police action, of human cruelty, and of the banality of evil that have plagued this country from the very start and even before it started. We have to openly and actively defy the urge to become distracted right now, because this revelation is teaching us exactly what we need to know in order to build an America that is actually worthy of our lives and our greatest dreams. This is an America that's demanding a reckoning right now, that is demanding justice. And as many people have pointed out, there will be no justice for George Floyd. If there was, he would be alive. There must be accountability for George Floyd. There must be justice for all of those who will come after him. And I'm so sad and devastated that it takes this much. It takes all of these bystanders, all of these people with their video cameras showing us exactly what happened for us to be awakened. But now we're awake. And the question is, what are we going to do with this awakeness, with this awareness now? I know us, we're not racist. We're good people. We're on the right side of history. But in this silence, with the revelation of the truth of these 2 minutes and 53 seconds, I am hearing revealed an even deeper truth, that all of us live in a social reality in which hatred and fear of Black bodies is that pervasive and that toxic, that that man's knee stayed on a neck of a most likely dead man for nearly 3 minutes. And it's simply not enough to be not racist when we are beneficiaries of that culture in so many ways. So I beg us to hear the words of Ibram X. Kendi, who says that the problem with being not racist is that it signifies neutrality. I'm not a racist, but neither am I aggressively against racism. But he says there's no neutrality in the racism struggle. The opposite of racist isn't not racist, it's anti-racist. So you are either racist or anti-racist, he says. In other words, this hatred is so deep, it's so much a part of the fabric of our nation that whether or not we identify with that history, whether or not the white nationalists hate us too, the cancer of racism is alive and well in this country, and it lives in all of us, and it will continue to grow until we do the work of extracting it from the depths, not only of our systems, but also of our beings. Ibram X. Kendi says that the only way to undo racism is to constantly identify and describe it and then work to dismantle it. If we're not actively working to eradicate it, then we are, without intending to, not only benefiting from it, but we're also sustaining it. The good news is that we can do this work, but only if we stay focused and don't get distracted right now. If we find ourselves talking more about the looting at the Targets than we do about the oppressive systems that led to the grief and the trauma and the pain that are drawing people to the streets all around the country right now, then we have failed. And right now, as hard as it is, I am so grateful for the silence and for the stillness, because it brought me to those 3 awful minutes. 3 minutes that, with all the shofarot and the thunder and the fire, with the TV crews and the broken glass and the constant flood of updates, I might have missed, which is the still small voice, the deeper truth, the truth of the ways that we all can and must do better. So I want to close today by offering us the words that my friend Valerie Kaur wrote right at the beginning of the quarantine, and she wrote it about this pandemic, but it is true about this moment that is now doubly painful and complex that we hold as well. And I offer this to us as a blessing today. What I wish for you is stillness. In the blistering pace of the pandemic, the cacophony of commentary, the relentless barrage of breaking news without rest, this kills the root of our wisdom, our ability to think clearly. It drives us to act on fear and panic. But this is a time to gather facts and then get quiet and summon our deepest wisdom and let that wisdom lead us. And then Valerie declared, and she was right, that this time will test who we want to be as individuals and as a people. Will we succumb to fear and self-interest, or will we double down on love? Is this the darkness of the tomb or the darkness of the womb? And I know that the answer to that question is that this is the darkness of the womb. I know that something powerful, something fair, something just can be born out of this moment, but only if all of us are willing to labor and to bring it into the world. I bless all of us that we stay safe, we stay healthy, and we stay focused. And I wish you all Shabbat Shalom.